Call the meeting to order. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, the various boards and committees representing the town of Grafton will conduct their public meetings and hearings via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members will be permitted. Sorry, I'm scrolling down. Everyone will be muted throughout the meeting, and as if you, I don't know if I can see it, if you raise your hand to speak. Joanne, do you know if I can see it? Somebody raise their hand and let me see if it shows up. Not that kind. I just literally raise your hand, and that's kind of the best way for me to see it, because I don't know how that little
have that little thing.
It's in the participants list to do it.
Participants list?
Because I know it's real easy to oversee that. Miss.
It is? I don't see it.
I raised my hand. I will.
Okay. So
if you look at the list,
I see it. I raised my
because
hand.
you won't know that you're muted. I mean, I guess you can see that you're muted. Okay. All participants are required to include their name and address when using the chat feature to pose a question to the chairman. All documents displayed throughout the meeting will be controlled by the present staff member, which is Joanne, and only computer participants will be able to view documents. All these documents are posted on our website. So if there are people listening and they would like to see those documents, just go to the Grafton Community Preservation Committee website, and you will find that on that webpage. When there are public questions or comments, it will be conducted in the following sequence. The chairman will read public comments and questions received in advance of the meeting, followed by real-time board and/or applicant responses. The chairman will read real-time comments, questions typed by computer participants in the Q&A feature, followed by real-time board and/or applicant responses. Computer participants must click on Q&A to enter their comment and question. The staff or chairman will address the question live to the board. It will be discussed and then marked answered by the staff member. The chairman will ask if any other participants addressing the meeting have comments or questions. Board members needing to be recused at any point during the course of this meeting will be placed in a virtual waiting room by the staff member. So I think that being said, we're going to skip over a couple of agenda items and go right to number 2, community preservation plan update, and Roberta Cameron will lead the discussion at this point.
Mr. Chair, do we need to take a audible roll call?
Right. Sorry about that. Yes. So, Jim Gallagher.
Gallagher here.
Justin Wood.
Wood here.
Paul Scarlett.
Here.
Brooke Paget.
Here.
Jen Thomas.
Here.
John Stevens here. Sandy is absent. Ken is absent. And Kristen is, those 3 are absent.
Right.
Did I miss anybody? Okay. Sorry about that. Roberta, go right ahead.
Right. Thank you very much. First of all, just to let you know that I'm going to do my best this evening. I'm actually calling from a very small house that my family is staying at in Woodstock, New York. And 2 of us are going to be on pre-scheduled calls this evening. So we're going to try to find our own spaces in the house where we can hear each other and not too much of, I mean, hear our calls and not too much of each other. And we're also entertaining family. So
Hey,
with that
Roberta?
said, yes.
I want to talk to you later. I grew up in Woodstock.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to talk
Sorry.
later.
All right, good. Sorry. Just had to get that in. All right, I'll be quiet now.
That doesn't surprise me.
We don't want to know about your parents and the Woodstock
Card-carrying Republicans they were. All right. All right. Sorry. On to the plan.
That's quite all right. So I'll try to get through this as efficiently as I can. And if I'm interrupted, or if my internet cuts out for some reason or something, hopefully you can continue without me and let me know what happens. So I'm going to begin. If you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen. I'm finding the correct document. There we go. Share screen. And so I'm just going to begin with a quick walkthrough of the outline of, so what we've shared this evening that we're going to talk about. So in the last meeting, we kind of went over how your process works and what you would like to refine or keep the same. And so I've tried to reflect on that in this draft application materials document that was sent to you this week, that explains, it's intended to explain to your applicants exactly how the process works and what they need to know in order to complete an effective application. And it also serves as a reminder to you, the committee members, about what, how the process works, what everyone's respective roles is, and what your criteria are, how you're going to be evaluating the applications. So it's all in here. So just a quick overview. I need to find how I can control this document. It provides, first of all, the timeline, just a description of your process. Then the guidelines for project submission. This is just, how you go about submitting an application. And the project requirements and evaluation criteria, going over what's allowable for applications and what you'll be looking for in the applications, with both in general and under each of the program areas. And then a mock-up of the application itself. And the last time we talked about taking this to an all online application format. So I think, the paper may still be available. You may have some real Luddites who would like to apply for funding, who may be able to work with your coordinator or a CPC committee member to fill in the online application so that everything, is uniform when the committee looks at it. But it may still be helpful to have this paper version that people can get a preview of what they need to apply. So with that, I'd like to go back and talk through each of the sections with you, beginning with the timeline. This is this is where we focused the other day when I spoke with Joanne and John, to give kind of a preview of what we're going to talk about in this meeting. So we ironed out some questions that we had already, but I'd like to hear committee members' feedback on the timeline and description of the process. We can't hear you. Are you speaking, Paul?
Yes, my apologies. Talking away. My recollection of the conversation the other night was neither Ken nor I was really in favor of this. And I know John made some good points, and some that address some of my concerns, but I don't know that we need to go to an annual. I don't see that we have a problem with the way we've been doing it. But if there are things that John has proposed,
we're not changing that. That's
dual,
not being proposed. It's still two meetings, two grant application meetings. That's what's right here on the timeline. It has two.
Okay. As long as yeah. All right. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to review this ahead of time.
Yeah, but no, that's a good point, because that did not make it to the final draft.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
I will remute myself.
Any other comments or concerns about how the process is outlined?
Yeah, I'm relatively new to CPC for myself, but I will say in reading through this, this looked pretty good to me. I like the idea of having the paper form available as well. There's enough people that are just not that comfortable with doing things online to that having a paper form that they can fill out at the least is a benefit to them, even if they then take that and go and do the online.
Yeah.
But the only thing that comes to mind for me just to say out loud is the timeline table. I don't know if that is worth trying to split up to two separate tables to kind of drill home the idea that it is two separate town meetings. I don't know how we'd want to do that with the optional grant writing workshop, because that could kind of fall on both in a way, or it could be missed in the fall town meeting if we only leave it in the spring town meeting section. But it's just a thought I had. I don't know if it ends up flowing right if we do my thought. It's just I wanted to share it anyway.
Okay.
The workshops are meant to be for anyone that's interested. They may have a
Yes.
project that's 1 month out, 6 months out, 1 year out. They're not tied to a particular town meeting. They just come prior to the town meeting. So if you are working on an application for a specific town meeting, then it's there for you. It's not
Yes.
required. It's optional. It's there for us to answer questions. So to help guide them, direct them.
To be clear, I did understand that. It was just the idea that when I first was reading this, I didn't catch that it was two town meetings in this timeline myself. It took me a second read through it to realize that. Even, but that said, it is still pretty clear. It's just I was reading a little fast my first pass through it, that if we could somehow make that a little bit more apparent in the timeline table, that could be a benefit. But then we have as I met, the grant writing workshop, which is optional and could be for, isn't necessarily tied to one particular piece. That may be a little bit odd to fit into the list of things that people should know about. So I don't know if splitting it makes sense, but
If I could just chirp in, because that was the first thing I was looking for on this page when we got it, is to make sure, as Paul said, that we did show still that there were two meetings, and that was apparent to me. So I didn't even write a comment on that one, for what it's worth.
Can I chirp in as well with a question? The first grant writing workshop on this list is in November, which is after October town meeting, but your second one is in April, before the town meeting. I mean, wouldn't it be better to have them both after or both before? I guess it's too late if you're doing it 2 weeks before town meeting to have any help for a town meeting. But why did you pick, I guess?
We discussed
March.
this. They're backed up far enough
Or
so
April, I
that
guess.
we can't really do it in December. December's not a great month for anybody. To do it in November, that the applications are actually due in February, and then we vote on them in March. And the April, it's the same thing. It's that we have town meeting in May, but you're trying to give people enough time that's not mixed up with town meeting and all those other kind of busy times, so that we're doing it at least a month in advance, so they have a month or two to work on it. Just because they go to the workshop, they can still come back to us at a meeting and say, I've done this, or individually, but it's giving them enough lead time. And that was the concern, that's why they were backed up as far back as they are.
So if I go to this grant workshop in April, I'm going to learn something that I present in May?
No, that's for
Okay.
July.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the April one is for the October meeting and the November one's for the May meeting, if you were going to do it
Right.
that way.
Well, I mean, that's what we have in mind, but again, it's not tied. If you go to the one in April, you've already missed the deadline. We've already
Yeah,
voted.
yeah, I know. I just was wondering why the October meeting was in November. If you were keeping it consistent, I would have thought you would have put the next one in June. You know, it's like after town meeting. You did the November after town meeting. You would do the
I
next
think
one after
because
town
in
meeting.
June, we're proposing to do the annual meeting, which is the discussion of the preservation plan. And so we were trying to separate those two fairly busy or potentially busy meetings, rather than trying to do it all at once.
So, go ahead. So one possibility could be to reverse the annual hearing and the grant writing workshop. The annual hearing right now is in June and the grant writing workshop is in April. But I think by thinking about putting the annual hearing in June is that town meeting itself would be instructive for you going into the annual hearing and the annual review process. Town meeting itself would give you feedback that would help you with the review process. But you know, it as you point out, it may be confusing to have the grant writing workshop before town meeting that is intended for the following town meeting. So, you know, what do you think of the idea of reversing these two? Paul?
Sorry. You just said exactly what I was going to suggest. Just reverse those two dates. If there's no reason to not do that, it would just seem like that would be the easiest solution.
Can I chime in on this one? So April is a really busy month right before town meeting because of all the finance committee meetings. Aren't those typically in April or are they done in March? I think
It seems like April because it's all backed up because they've got to have it done before, I guess, after the warrant has closed. But I don't know what kind of deadlines they have, but it has to be well in advance of town meeting as well. But it does seem like that they're fairly early, like in April, late April or early May.
Yeah, I guess either way, no matter both of those things, whether it's a grant writing workshop or the public hearing for the plan, we want to try to maximize attendance. And my concern is, you know, how stretched are people? So I'll be quiet. I think either one works.
Anybody else have a concern, question?
I don't have any strong opinions on which order or what months those items fall in, but just to ask it, is there a reason we don't want to do the one or both of those in July?
Because it's too late.
In June and July, I'm saying, meaning the grant writing workshop maybe in June and the annual hearing in July.
Because July, we're trying to spread out our workload. That July is going to be our first application. So, like tonight, we're doing applications. We're receiving 2 applications that will take up a large amount of time. This piece that won't normally happen is taking up a lot of time. If you add a workshop, grant writing workshop, that could take up 2 hours or 3 hours, you know, the whole time. And then you really don't have time to do all of them as thoroughly as they need to be. So that's why we're trying to separate them out and also give people enough time to use the workshop to their advantage to write a good grant.
If I
It
could
is-
just say briefly, I like it the way that you have it here. I think that flows nicely.
Okay. It's also possible that you can switch this in a future year if you try it and don't like it. You know, I mean, for transparency's sake, it's good to do what you say you're going to do before, you know, when you lay it out. But, you know, in your next annual review period, you could move this around if you like. This doesn't have to be forever. So I've heard a vote for switching and a vote for not switching the April and June. It's something that maybe you can get back to me because, you know, at any point we can, you know, before this document is finalized, the switching is easy. I don't have any horse in the game. So if some of you think about it and want to get back to me, or, you know, you want to ponder what you want this to be, you can always follow up with that later. I'm going to move on to guidelines for project submission. Really, aside from the fact that we're providing the online instructions for online application, I don't think anything has changed from your current application process. Any comments here, or I'll move on because there's more meat in the subsequent sections.
I guess that's good.
Okay.
Good news. No news is good news. So keep moving.
Great. So project requirements and evaluation criteria. The project requirements are tidied up a little bit, but have not particularly changed from your prior application process. But the evaluation criteria have changed substantially. And in fact, we're going to be talking about that more the next time we meet together. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds about the evaluation criteria because it really reflects what's in the plan. And we haven't talked about the draft plan yet. In fact, we'll be sending, after this meeting, we'll send the completed draft plan is ready to go out and give you a month to digest it before we meet together again to talk about the draft plan next time. But we could start with the requirements for all projects. Projects have to fit the description of eligible assets and activities. And there's a nice chart that was put out by the Department of Revenue that has all of their verbs and the nouns, the assets themselves defined, and what you're allowed to do with each. And so I just like to refer right to that chart and not, there's a summary chart that I think you had in your prior plan. And that's a nice handy little summary, but really you need the definitions themselves to tell you whether things are eligible or not. So we'll include that right up front in the application. So this is projects on town-owned property. An appropriate town department, board, or committee must be the applicant or co-applicant. I don't know if you have instances in Grafton, I see this in other communities, where members of the public submit applications on behalf of the town for, say, a park improvement or a schoolyard improvement. So what we're saying is that you can't just submit that application without actually going through the town to have someone have the appropriate person involved. If that's not an issue for you, we could strike that out, but I added that because I have seen that issue come up elsewhere. For projects that entail privately owned assets, some form of public access and public benefit must be ensured. And permanent or commensurate protection of assets for their intended use must be provided for as required under both Chapter 44B, that's your enabling legislation for CPA, and the Anti-Aid Amendment to the Massachusetts Constitution. And there's more detailed language about all of this in the draft plan. This is a summary, so hopefully your applicants will have actually read the long form as well. For projects related to housing development or rehabilitation, CPA funds can only be used to support the creation of units that are affordable to income-eligible households. And CPA funds cannot replace funding previously committed from the town budget or other sources. So that's just, I think, just what the law requires is what's spelled out in this first section. The comparative evaluation criteria, maybe we could just, I don't want to get too much into the weeds talking about this section, because as I said, we'll be getting into those weeds the next time we talk together. But stop me if there's something that you're really burning to respond to here. You all are not stopping me, so
keep going. You're doing a
I'm
good
going to
job.
keep going, skip right to, the only thing that I'm going to point out here is that I have incorporated a scoring criteria so that you can compare your applications. And that is, I've suggested, so these priorities and goals are what you will see in the plan, but here I've actually suggested what kind of score you can give using those priorities and goals that are in the plan. So you can really directly translate the plan to how you evaluate projects. Then I'm going to skip to the application itself. The cover page has not really changed much, I don't think, since the cover page that you're currently using. I might have just tidied something up. I'm looking for any changes that I made. I don't think.
If I'm recalling correctly from our cover page, we have the costs and broken down by years. And this does not do that, which is probably fine. I just wanted to call that out.
And so we do have, you'll see on the last page, a form for the budget so that it's easier to compare apples to apples. But we'll get to that form later. So we do include the cost, just not on the cover page. The cost is just at the, in summary at the bottom of the cover page.
I think maybe what he was referring to is on the old application, it would say for fiscal year 2020, 21, 22, 23. But I honestly don't know that any projects have ever really needed that. And if they do, I think it's easier to then manipulate this form rather than to have the form manipulated for the exception. It's usually for this town meeting and that's it, and we're done.
Yeah. And honestly, you cannot forward commit funding anyway. So if they do intend to come back for more funding later, hopefully that is, we can take a look at the budget to see whether that is included or needs to be included. But that's just something to keep in the back of your minds. That's not actually something that you can make a commitment to. So we can go to the project narrative. So the pages and pages of yes and no questions that you had in your previous application, I've tried to incorporate as many of those questions in spirit as I could, as I felt were relevant, and maybe some additional questions that pertain to the goals and priorities that I've spelled out. But put them into narrative questions so that it's perhaps more useful information for you, and it will get the applicants to think about how they align with the goals more directly. Hopefully this is, I know that one of the strong messages that you gave me the last time is that you don't want to make it any more complicated. So the fact that you're not checking boxes anymore is more complicated. We're asking for words, but it could be a few sentences or it could be paragraphs, depending on the nature of the project, the applicant's ability to fill the application. So I'll stop talking and ask you to respond.
So,
Well,
My-
if I could, I think that laying it out in a narrative is better for them because it's easier for them to describe how they see their project. And it also is giving us more information than we're going to glean from checking off different boxes. I think that we knew what the boxes meant when we put them in there, but I don't think that really went to the applicant. They're not really thinking the same way that we are by checking a box. And I think the narrative allows them to describe their project in their own words. And it also gives us, I think, more information as to how this thing is going to play out. I do like the narrative better. Thank you.
Good.
I'll, in a way, echo what Jim just said, is that, yeah, narrative is in theory more complicated than just a checkbox, but the bottom line is the checkboxes require the applicant to try to understand what we were asking for each one. And they may not understand every single one of those questions very well, so they don't know which is the right answer. And where we would then, whether they check it or not, a lot of times ask the applicant when they come to us for a narrative so we can understand. So having this in the application, I think, is better for everybody.
So there's nobody who doesn't like this approach.
Looks good. We like
Good.
it.
Good. Wow. I have never I never expected you all to be easy to please. For those of you who've had the opportunity to read this closely, is there anything that you think is missing that you would like to ask that hasn't been asked in the program areas? Would you like me to go through any of this in more detail so that we could talk through the questions? Or would you prefer to maybe go home and read it and absorb it yourself and send feedback? That works as well.
The former.
You'd like me to talk through it a little?
No, that would be the latter, right?
Okay, so you'd like to go home and
Yeah,
absorb
I'd like
it.
to read it. I'm sorry. I wish I could have read it in advance,
Yeah.
and you certainly provided it with enough time. But I've had a crazy week, so I apologize. If others want to do it, I'm fine with it. But that's just my thought.
And to myself, the skim was pretty good. I can imagine there might be, potentially word choices or rearranging of some of these questions that I might myself want to see that I haven't really thought through yet. But
Okay.
I don't feel we need to go through that
Okay.
in this format.
Great. Yeah, I would welcome your your copy editing feedback. That's always helpful. So I'll give you some time to absorb it. And I think that's all that I have to talk through with you this evening then. Oh, I'm sorry, the project budget. Skipped that section. That actually might be important for us to talk through before we put this to rest this evening. So the project budget, I did pare it down, as you noted, and I put it all on this page and not duplicating what was on the cover page. So the first box is just a summary, the total project cost, the CPA funds that are requested, funds coming from other sources. And so then what are the other funds as a percent of the total, or it could be CPA funds as a percent of the total. Then this breaks down more specifically, asking for what the budget looks like for specific elements of their budget.
So for contractual, just for my benefit, what types of things are going to fall under that?
It may be that you hire a consultant. to carry out a portion of the project. For example, you may be doing a design study for a specific park. So hiring the consultant to complete that design study would fall under contractual. Maybe
versus
there's a better
person.
word. I'm
Well,
sorry.
personnel, I'm just looking at, because of personnel, personnel would be, we actually have a staff person doing work, not a contract person that is working on a 1099.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe the word choices could be clarified.
But you know what I liked about this is that if we can just think back for a second on working with the Firemen's Association on the Roney Park, and how really difficult it was to get them to show the work that they were doing, the value of that work. This is the good place to get them to think about things like personnel and equipment and things like that, and construction, so that if they're doing parts of that project, that is a valid part of the cost. And this really makes it stand out, so that it makes more sense that they'd pick up on that, and instead of our having to chase them to say, no, you've got to add in what you're doing yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it gives them a chance to say that the personnel that the town is committing to the project is in kind contribution to the total cost of the project.
If I may, Roberta, what is the reason that we want the applicant to calculate the percentage of either other funds or CPA funds, rather than, like we currently have on our current application, the potential other fund sources? So things like, like how are they getting other funds, donations, grants, things like that. And I feel like everyone on this committee, and most people that will serve on this committee, can figure out at least a ballpark percentage, if not the exact percentage, knowing the total and knowing the CPA request and the other fund numbers.
Yeah, I think it may be an oversight to the project budget that I've laid out here, that it doesn't have a question of what are the other sources of funds. So that is a
But you
question.
do, it seems like, where it says budget other funds.
Organization, you're right. So identify the amount. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right.
So that's separating it all out. And that's
fair.
getting to Jim's statement.
Yeah.
It's telling us that it's in kind, that they did all this labor, or they contributed $25,000 for lighting, or so this really does peel it out.
Yeah, I think part of it, to me, just I glossed over that section. So thank you for pointing it out. I totally missed that we had to itemize for the other funds, but the other piece was the having them calculate a percentage. If that, I could be just in the isolated state here, but if I was applying for something, if I know that total cost and then the individual things that someone may want a percentage of is all written, it doesn't.
It's what?
Just above on the screen. It's
no, but it's what?
All written down, so we have the total project cost, the CPA.
Okay, no, but
requested.
the reason for that, and that's probably because you haven't been, you're not an old timer. We want people to have skin in the game, and the more skin in the game, the better the project. So if it says 50% right there, we know they've got a lot of skin in the game. If it says 1%, to 90, it's telling us with that percentage, without anybody having to look at all the other stuff.
Yeah,
it gives you an indicator of how hard they've tried to seek money elsewhere, and if they're relying on us 100%, because some things you can't help, but it's 100%. Other things, we want to encourage people as much as possible to have other dollars, other in kind, other whatever, so that we're not totally funding their project.
If I may, John, the point to me is I understand we definitely do want them to have skin in the game. 50%, even 80% of other funds is great, but I don't know that we need the percentage listed on this, on that section, because we do have everything we need to know to kind of get an idea of that the total cost, CPA funds and other funds. We can see if CPA funds are close to other funds. We know it's nearly 50%.
Okay,
But
well,
if
what's
they're-
the problem? Is it that to have it on there? Why is that such a bad thing?
I'll say to me, it's not really a big problem. It's just the idea that it's just an extra thing that someone has to calculate or try to figure out when they're doing the application.
Okay, well, if they're asking
Trying to
for
make it-
$500,000 or $100,000, I don't think that's too much to ask.
it,
You know, you've
Yeah.
got two numbers, you just divide. It's pretty easy.
fair. I just wanted to call it out.
Plus, remember, Paul has got to work on the math too, so anything we can help him with his math will be better.
Not everybody has Jim's calculator brain.
So then I did just add, there's a question underneath, if there's an opportunity for other matching funding contingent upon approval of okay, so this actually doesn't fit. You know, one thing that I would like to add that I didn't put in here that I can see is one of the things to consider is there are some projects for which CPA is potentially the only source of funds available. So if that's the case, like if they've tried to find funding elsewhere and couldn't, let us know what you've done. So that's something I'm going to find a way to squeeze it in here to give them a chance to, you know, so if this number is low, give them a chance to explain why the number is low if they've made an effort and they couldn't bring it up.
I think that's a good point. Let's see. Wait, to go back to where it says, is this, go down a little bit more where it had, is this going to be multiple years? And then
Yes.
if so, please, and then maybe in parentheses, please, you know, something about what you said, you know, that each request for funding in each fiscal year is a separate request, that a current board cannot commit a future board's funding. You know, that's as cleanly and easy to understand language so that they know if this is a 2-year project and they are asking for this year, we can only give them this year. We can't promise them next year. We can say we will consider it. We're in favor of it, but until next year comes and you have another application, and there may be new members each year that, so it could change. The priorities could change. We could say, you know, moving forward, we want to do 80% affordable housing. You know, so they're going to do very small open space and recreation and historic preservation that we really want to. So each year that could change the priorities of the committee.
That's a good point.
You know, the other thing that I really liked is your lifetime cost comment, because that's something I think that some folks might presume that once this is done, that they can then get other money to do the maintenance of that project. And this is really good in drawing their attention to the fact that that we're not paying for maintenance. That so we're asking them to explain how that'll be managed. I thought that was a great addition. Thank you.
Good. Okay. So I've got a few notes of things that I'm going to tweak a little bit about this, and I can send that back to Joanne so that the more recent draft can be posted for the public to review and comment on eventually. And of course, would welcome your feedback at any time when you've had a chance to digest more of this. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be sending out the draft report with plenty of time for you to be able to go through it. It includes all of the data that we talked about during the presentations earlier on, and I did incorporate some additional data points based on the feedback that I had during that meeting process. And then we've also digested all of the public engagement notes that we received from the interviews and the survey and the online forums that we held. And all of that is in a separate document, which you will also be getting. So there's probably 50 pages of material to read for the next meeting. And then I took that, all of that input and used that to draft the goals and priorities. So you'll see all of that in the document that we'll be sending out following this. So I think that concludes what I needed to cover with you this evening. We decided to go with this shorter document because I know that you have a long agenda this evening. So I appreciate the time that you've given me. And is there any other comments before I jump off? Great.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you,
And,
Roberta.
Yes, thank you. We do appreciate it a lot. It's a lot of work here.
This is the fun part. So I appreciate your feedback on what we've done. So with that, good night, everybody. I will let you move on to the rest of your agenda. Take care.
Okay, good night. Have a
Bye.
good
Well,
time in Woodstock.
Enjoy Woodstock.
Enjoy it. I love it.
Yes, we will. You'll have
I'll
to send
text
me
you
some
restaurants.
recommendations.
Yes,
What's
I
that?
will. I'll tomorrow. I will later tonight. I'll send you some thoughts.
Great. Thank you. Take care.
Okay, is Jen Anderson's on? So we're gonna skip down to number 6 so we can get recreation and affordable housing trust in, and then we'll go back to our other business. So if Jen wants to get unmuted, and everybody should have her application for funds for making the parks handicap accessible. You're on. She's frozen. She really is frozen.
Frozen? Am I good?
You're good.
Okay. So do you want me to just kind of start from the top, or do you guys have questions, or just a quick summary of what we're looking to do?
I would say, since this is kind of a new approach to recreate the parks, why don't you give us a brief summary, and then if there are questions, we can take them after you do a real quick summary.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we things all kind of lined up together in unfortunate ways, but for the better. Starting with, you know, the beach not running this summer, and we were able to earmark that seasonal payroll and put it towards these ADA improvements, the project as a whole. So we're looking to address the entire list of items in the ADA plan that town had conducted last year, and specific to the ones that are directly overseen by recreation, or the portions that are in conjunction with the Parks Department. And so those properties would be Airport Park, Perry Hill Park, Ferry Street, Norcross, Riverview, and Silver Lake. So I've been working for a while, laying out everything that has to be done in all those places and kind of categorizing it and breaking it out into the different portions and who can do what. So there's a lot of, there's plumbing things in our bathrooms. There's different small to medium contractor jobs, from adjusting counter heights and swing closures on, sorry, Jim, is that a question you want me to?
Can I just interrupt you just for a second? On the report that you have there, I don't see Silver Lake on here. I see Ferry, Airport, Norcross, Riverview, and Ferry. Yeah.
Silver Lake is part of the overall ADA transition plan. I'm addressing that with the funding we currently have. I'm not currently including Silver Lake in this funding request.
Oh, okay. That's why it's not on there.
I
then.
see it on my version, Jim. Jim, it's on the version that, when was this sent? Yesterday at 12:02, I received it.
Yeah, I'm listing it in general, so you guys are understanding the project as a whole that we're taking on to address
Yeah.
everything in the plan. I think the stuff that needs to be addressed at Silver Lake could be addressed with the funding we currently have. So with the existing funding we have, which is about $100,000, we are going to be addressing, hopefully, we should be able to address everything other than the accessible routes and playground surfacing as a whole. So we'll be able to do all of the other improvements and amenities, the picnic tables that need to be in the parks and those sorts of things. But when you look at the accessible routes in the parks and the playground surfacing, that's a much larger project with a much higher price tag to it. And so knowing that is could be under the purview of CPC, we thought it was a great opportunity. And knowing that, I thank you for supporting the super project funding wise, but that funding now not being earmarked, I thought it was a great opportunity to come back and see what we could do for this. So, like I said, I anticipate having at least $50,000, if not more, remaining from our existing funds that we could put towards the accessible surfacing project in the routes. But looking for you to hopefully supplement the rest of that. So initial estimates right now are in the $300,000 range. Like I said, I anticipate bringing at least $50,000, and then there's two other grants that we would be able to apply for. One being up to $100,000, which seems pretty attainable for us to get, and still learning about the amounts of the Mass Office of Disability grant that's coming out August 1st for their application. So I'll be able to know what our funding is for that there. So I gave you a list of the places that we'd be addressing. I do have a link I could share to some Google Earth kind of maps I drew up to show you where the routes would go. We're still quoting out what that material would be between like a bonded mulch type thing, more likely looking at asphalt, and we've got quotes coming in for that as well, and the playground surfacing. I'm looking at mostly like a matting type setup. That would give us the ability to, one, it's going to be a little bit more, it's kind of modular, so it's going to be able to work with, as some of our playgrounds are aging out, when we would need to address that, we're not committing to like a poured in place rubber. This is going to meet the criteria that we need, is more easily replaceable when damaged or needs repaired, much more less expensive option, and gives us the ability to change out pieces if needed and expand easier in places that we could. So I'm hoping that covers the overall picture.
Okay, thanks. Any questions? It looks like I see a real hand. Justin.
All right. So the first kind of thought and question I have is on the application sheet, it does say 300,000 for total cost, 250 from CPA funds, and you do list the 50,000 you expect from your funds, and then 100,000 potential in grants. Is that meaning the total cost would be 400,000, or is it more that the total cost would be no more than
the total cost right now is about I'm thinking like 325 max. We have to look at some gating, some entryways right at the gates to the playgrounds, and look at bringing in some more mulch. The mulch would go under these mats, so that would be 4,000. So I'm thinking 325 max, all inclusive, and then we'll be looking at the cash we would have on hand and money coming back to you from these two grants.
Okay. And then my other question is there any parks that are not represented here that the Recreation Commission oversees that also need accessibility improvements that we're not covering with this?
I'm addressing the ones that are, like I said, under the Recreation and Parks
Yes.
Department. So there's
Yeah.
other parks that are listed as part of the ADA transition plan,
Yeah.
such as Nelson Park. Brook Meadow is listed on there, but that's a leased situation,
Yeah.
with the town.
My-
Mill Village is on there, but many of those things are be able to believe that Parks is saying they could handle internally.
Yeah.
And many of the other stuff we are doing will be handled internally as well. But this.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm sorry,
My question
you
was
kind
just
of
for the
broke
ones that
up.
you.
The last one, sorry, Justin, the last one you said, it broke up when you said the name, where they're gonna handle it.
Mill Villages.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And all I was gonna say is my question to you on that was explicitly the ones that the Recreation Department is responsible for, because I know there are others like Nelson Park, who's mentioned, that you don't manage as a Recreation Department. So.
Right. Nope. So we're addressing everything all at once under us.
So the just to get ahead of you, but to kind of make everybody understand that if we would write for $300,000, subject to reduction by any other grants that you may receive, because those would be spent first if they came first. So it's like if you have 50,000 on hand, that needs to be spent first. If you get a grant in 6 months, the CPC funds would stop, and then you start spending your grant. Then you go back to your CPC funds, and then the maximum would be the 300. If you don't need it because you've got the grants, then it would get turned back.
Yes.
Can I ask a question? I'm going through the quotes. I guess I don't fully understand what it is you're doing. Are you doing the routes and the pathways and surfacing the playgrounds, or are you doing the bathrooms and the picnic tables and the entryways? I mean, or are you trying to do all of that with 300,000?
No, I just wanted you to know that how we're addressing the whole need of ADA that was recognized in that plan.
So what's the 300 by?
300 is specifically for the accessible routes within the parks. And so they're looking for us to have a route from things like the parking lot to the playground, to the basketball court, to spectator seating, to batting cages, to, what have you, benches. So I've laid out the routes within the park to reach those amenities. So we're drawing up those paths, but we also need to address the surfacing within the playgrounds themselves.
Well, I guess that was going to be my question. So you're going to give them a route to something they can't use?
No.
Because you don't have the right surface. How does a wheelchair get over mulch?
That's what that one spreadsheet for about $190,000 is. That's for the matting that's going to be placed within the playground over the mulch that is there.
So that would do all the playgrounds, 190,000?
Mm-hmm.
And is it a plastic or rubber type?
It's like I don't know if you like a restaurant rubber matting with holes.
Yeah.
So the 3x5 tiles, they can be staked in on the edges, but they're zip tied together. It's called if you were to look it up, like Grass Mats USA, and so like I said, it's modular, which is I think much easier for us with our current setup. Going to get us a quicker, a more immediate accessibility in our playgrounds. It meets the Mass 521 CMR, requirements, and is going to be able to be easily repaired when damaged than an poured-in-place type surface, and give us the ability to change out or replace structures as they age out in a much easier manner.
So how does it work? It surrounds the sorry, Paul, the swing set or whatever it is?
Yeah, so You don't necessarily need to do it, and that I anticipate the number to come in less than that. That number is quoting us at 100% coverage in each playground, and that doesn't need to be the case. You're supposed to, well, there's conflicting information, but the plan says to do the perimeter and at least one of each of the things, right? So we don't have to put this matting under all, let's say, all four swings. We have to get it to, a swing and a handicap swing. And it just cuts right around the posts. It's very easy to install. So that's kind of a max number for that matting to cover 100% of the playground surface.
What is the life expectancy on that material?
10 years.
How does that compare to other stuff? I'm just curious.
Poured in place can go a little bit longer, but they tend to have a little more. It's really heavily based on proper installation, which doesn't always happen. So sinkholes and tears and those sorts of things can happen quite commonly for that.
Thank you.
And my belief is, and you can tell me if I'm correct on this, is that this would go out for a formal bid process if this is approved at town meeting?
Well, it'd be based on, if we did that, but I believe there's, it's kind of a proprietary material. There's not multiple people who are carrying it.
Yep.
Number one.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely.
In my thought is for the entire project that we'll be funding is the work that's involved in this and materials would go out for a formal bid, even though we think we know what the cost is, of course, but that was just a question.
This is Jen. I have a quick question. John?
Go right ahead.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know
Sorry.
if you saw me or waiting to recognize me. Jen, is this matting that it covers all the fall zone requirements? It's considered a surface enough for fall zone?
It does have the testing on its own. The company who produces it, you don't need to have anything else. The local installer really recommends that you still have the 12 inches of mulch underneath, which we will do. And we pretty much mostly have it almost all the playgrounds right now except for Riverview. So that's why I'm saying I have to figure out kind of that additional expense just on getting the mulch in there. But like I said, it shouldn't be more than $15,000-$20,000.
And then once that mulch is underneath it, does that mulch then have to be replaced every year? I know that you do it's a lot of work every year to replace your mulch.
It is, and so this keeps it all in place, protects it from displacement. You're not gonna. You might have to do a little bit of a filler here and there, but nowhere near what we're doing now.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, I guess so it sounds great. It sounds like a good fix. But so you get access, do each one of those parks have handicap accessible equipment that they're now going to have access to, or is that another expense that's coming down the line?
Well, no. All the playgrounds have what's considered accessible equipment. Compliant equipment. It's not considered accessible because we don't have the surfacing. So yes, there are some things like at airport where we should have a ground level component because we have an elevated component. But I also have a consultant saying, no, your swing is your ground level component. You're okay. So no additional equipment at this time is believed to be necessary.
John,
Yes.
Paul has his hand up. Paul, did you mean to have that up?
Yes, but I already had my question answered because I already asked it.
I
just
got rid of
didn't
it.
take it down. Sorry.
That's okay.
Because I can't see a little hand. I can only see a real hand.
All right, I
covering
was
the-
just trying to follow the rule.
And I'm trying to make sure this goes off, stops rather.
And John, I do have one comment relating to this, but it's not a question for Jen Anderson or this project specifically.
Okay.
So
Yep.
I'll defer until anyone else's questions are done. I just wanted to call it out.
Well, go ahead.
All right, my comment is mainly for primarily for people that are watching this along, just to kind of reiterate the point, is that this does not cover all the parks in Grafton. There are many that are handled by other departments or other people. Like Nelson Park is a trust. There's school playgrounds that could use some help in some situations, but those are school department. So if those would like CPA funds, they would be coming to us with their own proposals and not the recreation departments, which I'm comfortable with. I just wanted to reiterate that in case anyone watches and wonders why we're missing out on their favorite park.
Good point. Anybody
Okay,
else have questions?
but not school department. Yeah, I'm glad you referenced that particularly, but it's not like the school department can come to us and say that we need to have this done in the school playgrounds, because we've had that question before, and we're not allowed.
Roberta did say that we could do school playgrounds. She explicitly said that a few months back, that we could fund improvements of school playgrounds. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, the discussion we had, I believe, was with regard to a school that was looking to really just pave a parking lot, and they were going to use it sometimes when weather wouldn't permit them to have any place else to have the kids go out and congregate. So that was kind of different, but I did hear exactly what you're saying, that we actually could, for the right project, do school stuff.
Right, that was my point of reference, was in the comment about the asphalt.
Yeah,
but I also think that a concern that was raised at the time of that project presentation was that because the school playgrounds aren't available during school hours, that's a bulk of the time, and that we were concerned that people didn't have full access to the parks.
I thought we were going to get clarification on that.
We could fund it, but it's just that then it's only the school kids can have access to it during the school day, and then whenever the parks are open before or after that, then the public could use it.
I don't want to get up in the weeds, but I don't really buy that.
Paul
as
had
a
his
reason
hand up.
to say no.
I did see a hand. So
No, I was going to agree with Justin, actually. I think that we owe it to at least look at what the other arguments are for it. I don't know what they are. I hear your point, and I know that was one of the things that we discussed. Maybe there is something that we haven't been considering. Let's be open to hearing that.
Justin, I don't see a hand, but I know you had a comment.
All I was saying is I don't want to get off in the weeds on things that are not relating to this project before us tonight, but I don't really buy the argument for myself that because it's a school playground and it's not usable by people that are not in Grafton schools outside of school time, that it's not a public benefit to Grafton residents.
Well, that's not what was said.
I'm just articulating that I don't think we really need to go down that discussion tonight, but that was just
that's not what I said. That's not what I said. It is a public benefit, but does the public have full access to it was the concern. I'm just saying that was part of the discussion when that application came before us. Anything else? Jim?
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah, no, we're excited. Is obviously is a need in town, and it's vital to have in our parks, in our playgrounds, and we're pretty excited to start taking this list on, and this is a big portion of not only what needs to happen according to that list, but obviously to address and give it to our residents overall.
Good for you.
Okay. Thanks for pulling this together so quickly.
Yes, thank you.
Can I just quickly ask John,
Yes.
the committee, is there anything that Jen did not provide to you tonight in that grant proposal that you would like to see? Because she's got a month left to pull it together.
Right.
You know what I mean?
If you need additional information, now's the time to ask for it, friends.
Oh.
Committee members.
Yeah, I'm good.
Justin.
Justin has his hand up.
Yep. All I'll say is that I don't feel I needed to make a vote on this for myself, but it would be extra benefit for residents that may come across that may ask about it. Is, you know, like you mentioned earlier, Jen, like any drawings about like what in particular is going on, or if we're changing any equipment, which I don't remember reading in this or hearing you say, but more visual depictions of what's going to be done with this work. That would be a benefit. But
we wanted to share the link before. Because like I said, I drew up some routes just so you can see, like, so when you enter the gates of Norcross, to the left and right are benches, and we need to have paths to those benches. We need to have a path all the way back to the batting cage of Norcross. I'm trying to think of another airport. I'm basically looking at potentially proposing a full loop path around the property. Because we have to go to the playground, we need to go to the basketball court, we need to go to the benches of the first baseball field, the batting cage, the spectator seating, et cetera, et cetera. So by the time you do that all, without disturbing the outfields and such, and so an added benefit of airport is that's going to be a full walking path around the whole park as well. Is what we think. So if you look at the ADA plan, and I didn't know if I should highlight the different portions of where the routes would be and what we do need to connect to. That's all we're doing. But I do have some marked up Google Earth pictures, and that helps as well.
Great.
Do you plan to do a presentation at town meeting?
I can. I mean, whatever you guys think is. I feel like this is. I mean, yeah, I hadn't got that point. I just hadn't got to that point yet, because I think everything helps, and we'll do everything we did before with the super park, and get information out to people ahead of time, and try to set up some informational meetings, and we'll have our rec meetings and that sort of thing. And what we've done now is turn around pretty quick, and so we have a few more weeks to get it more in depth, but hopefully that people are understanding the general idea of what we're trying to do. And I've set you estimates to put a hard number behind it. And it's whether you guys feel it's something CPC can take on financially and wants to support. And I think most projects that CPC brings to the table of town meeting that they have their support on, people agree with. For it. So I'm hoping there's a lot less explanation that needs to go behind this than the super park. But yeah, we can definitely be prepared to do that.
I think it might be helpful to have for our next meeting, and especially for town meeting, is either a picture of an actual park that has whatever it is that you're going to put down, that mesh, so people can actually see what it is. I think everybody kind of thinks they understand what it is, but if it's a real picture, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, so you guys, you'll need to vote in August. You'll need to be voting at the August date.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll just reiterate that if we do vote to put this forward, which it seems like the committee, at least that's here tonight, is in favor of it, including myself, I'll say right now, that anything we can do to make the townspeople also in favor of it more strongly at town meeting with like pictures or presentation in some way, even if it's a short one, I think is a good idea. So I wanted to just reiterate what Paul said.
All right.
Jen, I would just add to one of the things that the committee has started looking for are letters kind of endorsement. So the Disability Commission, it would be great they provided a letter endorsing this.
Yeah, they said they're not meeting until August 20th again. And so I'm assuming you guys are gonna meet the 27th?
Yeah.
I'm hoping I'm gonna ask Roger to hopefully have something drafted that night for approval so we can get it right to you versus them just approving to do it. So you can have it in front of you to review before.
I don't think we're questioning that, but I think something like that would be very valuable at town meeting.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
And I mentioned in the application that it's also addressing a lot of the goals in the open space and rec plan. And I think that's something to note as well.
I think that's really important in your application that it says that, because that's where, in our new application, you'll get extra points for that, it's not just a good project, it's a good project that we've made a study and we said this is a priority. So that's really important for us to have that re-emphasized to us. Anybody else?
I just wanted to say, John, in our Q&A, Roger Trahan, who I believe is the current chair of the Disability Commission, did say he's placing that on his agenda for August 20th. And he also says that they can also support grant applications.
Good. Okay, thank you for. Now I see it. Okay, great. All right, I think Jen, you're free to go.
All right, thanks everybody. We'll be
Thank you.
we get in August.
Thank you very much. Okay. We're going to go to Affordable Housing Trust next, and I think Dan Crossan's unavailable, so I'm not sure if Ed's the vice chairman, but he's representing Affordable Housing Trust, the application that they have. So if there he is, if we could get him unmuted so he can go over his request.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Chris McGoldrick, I'm the town planner, and the Affordable Trust had asked that I present the materials tonight to you. So if I may.
Go right ahead.
So thank you. I'll be fairly brief tonight. At the meeting last night of the Affordable Housing Trust, they authorized me to submit these application materials. Today I did try to pull together as much as I could. I understand that there's still more to come, and I don't expect in the last 3 minutes before this meeting that you reviewed some of the materials that I sent in. But I'll continue to complete that application prior to the August meeting. But I did want to introduce the program and discuss some of the details with you if you have some preliminary questions. So the Affordable Housing Trust, obviously, I'm sure you're all aware of COVID-19 and the effects that that's having financially, especially for renters. A number of Massachusetts communities have been implementing emergency rental assistance programs. And the Affordable Housing Trust has been evaluating the possibility of doing a similar program for Grafton. And what that'll do is that'll provide rental assistance for households that are directly affected by COVID-19, either through loss of income or other financial hardship, and are unable to meet the rental requirements. As you know, the moratorium on evictions has been extended until October, but those moratoriums do not negate the need to actually make those payments. So that money is still, or that rental payment is still due to the landlord. And so that's where we really see the need for this assistance for families that and households that may have been affected by income. So in evaluating the programs, the Affordable Housing Trust is moving forward with MCO housing services. They presented a proposal last night that would serve approximately 45 to 50 households We're looking at some project criteria to set a budget of an entire project budget of $325,000 for an initial round of funding, potentially to be expanded in the future if needed. But that's the initial funding that'll come from the Affordable Housing Trust. And the request tonight is for funds that would then backfill that amount that's expended. The 325,000, so 300,000 of it is direct disbursements to, it would be directly paid to the landlord. And so that's, the calculation for that is we're looking at a maximum of 2,000 per household cap, and it would be 3 months disbursements, so a total of 6,000 per household. And when multiplied by the anticipated 50 households, that's your $300,000. There's administrative fees that are associated with the program as well. The application is actually 2 separate applications, one for the 300,000 in aid and one for the 25,000, which is the administrative fees. There's a $3,000 flat fee for the setup of the program, and then $400 per approved applicant. So again, the $400 and the 50 households to be served, with the additional 3,000 flat fee comes out to $23,000. We're asking for 25 just as a kind of safety number there. So that's the budget of $325,000. Again, those payments would go directly to the landlord. We do feel that this would serve a need. Looking at the numbers in the housing production plan, as well as what other communities are doing and their kind of project criteria, we feel that these are tailored to Grafton's context, but also commensurate with similar communities and similar efforts. But that's kind of the brief overview of the program. I know I threw a lot at you right there. A lot of the materials are still coming in, but I'm happy to kind of discuss the program with you if you have any questions, and go from there.
Can I just
Anybody-
jump in?
Yep.
John?
Jim, go ahead.
I had the opportunity to at least audit the trust meeting last night, and their meeting with the board, that MCO board, and listening to their criteria and the privacy that's involved and everything like that. And I think the trust has really got their finger on the pulse. And I don't mind saying at all that I think that now John and I are the charter members of this committee, and I, for myself, I don't think that we've been involved in anything as important as this particular piece of what do we call grant? I don't think there was ever anything as important as this that strikes a need right now. And I think where the trust stepped up and took this on, and in such a short period of time, I think it's just remarkable. I think they're to be commended, and I think this is the best money I think we could possibly spend. Thank you.
And it's impacting the most number of people, I think, in any of the projects that the trust has done. So that's also a huge plus for the program. Anybody else have questions, comments?
I guess a comment. I'm all for it. It sounds like a great idea. I just wonder why. I mean, there's got to be over $1 million in the Affordable Housing Trust. Why do we need to backfill it before they need it? Can't they expend it and then come back to CPC when they need it, rather than asking for it before they've spent it? I mean, I don't know how much is in there, but I know there's over $1 million. I just wonder why we have to backfill.
I can address that, Brooke. We've got, I believe right now, about $1.6 million. I think $700,000 of that is CPC funds, 900 plus is Pulte money. We're going to be moving in a couple different directions at once here. As you know, the trust mission is to create, preserve, and maintain affordable housing. And the way affordable housing is defined within our purview, it's a term of art, which means housing that comes with a deed rider to keep it in our subsidized housing inventory. This doesn't do that. This is outside the scope of our mission, and we're efforting this, because it's sort of one of those things like, okay, close enough. It's housing, and we want to make it affordable for people, lowercase h, lowercase a. We also, at the same time, we're just deeded 25 Worcester Street, so we want to move as rapidly as we can. To be able to spend our money as wisely as we can, to be able to get as much bang for our buck as we can to get that project rolling. And as you well know, $1.6 million sounds like a lot of money when it comes to a trust like this. But with average housing costs in Grafton being $390,000 per home, you would only build 3.3 houses with that money, right? So we've got to be judicious with how the money gets spread around. Were we to wait to backfill, the schedule probably would be next May before we got around to doing that, because we would obviously be too late for October town meeting. And we would be talking about something, 9 months from now, and 9 months from now, given what I hope are aggressive plans, is a little bit longer. So, all we can do is ask, right? So it seemed like the prudent thing for us to do would be to ask for a commitment now, for some amount of this money.
Yeah, I'm not against the project or the idea of the project. It just, I'm new to this, so I'm not sure how we usually look at these things. I'm not even against funding it. It's just when you have $1.6 million, I get you got a lot of plans, but that 1.6 million's been there for 4 or 5 years. So it may go forward, but it just seems to me as though it's a good idea. Keep it there if you need the funding. It sounds like there's a lot of support, but I don't know why we would kind of dedicate funds to an organization that has $1.6 million, at least right now, to make it 1.9, Anyway, but I'm not against the project. It's just, I don't know why we'd be backfilling somebody who has 1.6 million.
Brooke,
Even though all the things that you said, I understood, but
if I could just flip it around, this is a project that most CPC committees across Massachusetts have taken upon themselves without involving the Affordable Housing Trust. So not for nothing, but from our perspective, we're kind of fronting money that should be CPC money. And we've got to ask ourselves why we're doing that. And we're doing it because we want to help. So that's why.
And again, I'm not arguing. You have $700,000 of CPC money already. That's
all right.
Right, but that's no affordable housing trust fund.
Hang on one at a time. I have a question. What about the $100,000 in CARES Act funds that you have available to you? How will that play a role?
Chris, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah, so I think ideally, the way you would spend the funds would be initially it would be the $100,000 of CARES Act money would be spent into the Affordable Housing Trust as reimbursement. You would want to use that money first, then the CPA, and then tap into the Affordable Housing Trust money. I think that would be the ideal way of expending the money.
Okay.
Timeline wise, however, I think the way rather than getting too into the weeds of the procedural details of how the money specifically gets spent, I think it's important to have it lined up so that it can happen rather than having to wait for funds to be going through a procedural process, if that makes sense.
Okay, but if there's 100,000 and they're asking for 325,000 and the program is 325,000, there's 100,000 that's not getting spent, right?
Yeah. So I mean, any funds that are, I would imagine that any funds that CPC commits to Affordable Housing Trust, if they wind up, if the program winds up using less than what's budgeted, those funds would be returned to CPC.
Yeah,
I think
that's fine.
I think in the case of, if this program, depending upon, I hope our outreach reaches a lot of families, and I hope that we can do a lot more than just 50 households. I think the need is going to be much larger than that, just in my own opinion. And so if this program needs to expand quickly, I think it'll be important to have those funds on hand, whether the CARES Act money goes for reimbursement of the Affordable Housing Trust funds or expands the program in and of itself. I think that's the availability of it. So,
Chris,
Okay.
I
I
think
interrupted somebody and I can't
Sorry.
remember, was it Jim? Jim,
I
okay,
would-
sorry.
I have a couple of
Jim Paul.
comments. A couple of comments. First, for Brooke, I think what would be helpful is when we do the Affordable Housing Trust, when they come in and they do a request for funding, one of the things that is presented at that time is an update as to exactly what's going on. And we were able to take advantage of that. And you didn't. So I think that would have answered a lot of your questions, just to add that on. Secondly, to Ed's point about what's being done by other CPCs, I think it's important to note that the CPC cannot administer a program like this. What the other CPCs have done is they've made subgroups so that they were able to act independently of the committee to do something like this. The fact that you folks stepped in and picked this up, I think is tremendous, because you've got the knowledge, skills, and abilities already to be able to maintain this. And this is a population that you're used to serving. So the fact that you're doing it, I think, is a tremendous credit to the trust. But I don't want to minimize thinking that, well, the CPC here in Grafton is sitting back and not doing anything about this. We are not able to do anything about this without forming a separate committee. And this is so fluid. This all just happened, for example, with the signing of the deed and everything like that happened last night. And this is something that's going on, and the whole situation is fluid. So I think what's important is that we're unified in this project and we're working together. And I think we're committed to doing that. And I'll shut up.
Okay, wait, just as Paul is next.
So just so I'm understanding this correctly, the CARES Act funding, that's available for the rental assistance specifically?
It's specifically earmarked for rental assistance for Grafton. Tim wrote a grant specifically for rental assistance.
Do we
have to
have
get it
that money,
first.
or we're just hoping to get it? All right, we're
We're
hoping
hoping
to
to
get it.
get
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
So we're all on the same page that if we do get that, that money has to be expended first, because CPC funds always are expended last. Okay. All right. Thanks, Ed.
Another question that unless there was, Brooke, did you have a question?
Well, I think Justin had a question first, but
Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
can defer to John and Brooke.
No. I'm not seeing hands. So, Justin.
My only question was just procedurally where the cover pages we have in the application here does say explicitly for the emergency rental assistance program, which will actually be having money given out from the Affordable Housing Trust before town meeting. But our CPA funds should be spent, second, in theory. But does that mean that what we really should be doing is saying this should be going to the Affordable Housing Trust directly, rather than being part of the rental assistance program itself? That's just a kind of throw it out there question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so my understanding about the CPA funds is that they do need to be specifically earmarked for a reason. So I don't believe that the funds would be able to be distributed to the Affordable Housing Trust without caveats. So the Affordable Housing Trust is expending the money that they want to get the program up and running essentially as soon as possible. So the money will be getting expended. And then the CPA monies would then backfill those expenses in effect. And so ideally, that's where I was discussing, procedurally, I think you would want to be able to kind of directly expend the CPA funds, but the timeline doesn't really allow for that, I don't think, in this case. So that's why it's a little bit.
Is there a
John,
budget?
this is a little important. The town has the CARES Act money.
So it is a,
The
available,
CARES
they
Act
have
money
it.
is here.
Okay,
Yes. So that money probably is what you should be spending right now.
okay.
Okay.
I have
We don't
another
have it.
question that's related to that. It's the Grafton Strong money that I guess is administered by the town. Is any part of that restricted or dedicated to rental assistance, or what are those? What's the purpose of that fund? If is it rental assistance? Is it food? Is does it have restrictions on how that money is spent?
So my understanding with Grafton Strong is that's being administered by Nancy Connors. And that's going to people that they
Barbara Connolly. Nancy Connors is Board of Health.
Oh, I'm sorry, Barbara Connolly, my mistake. But yeah, but no, that's not something that we would have access to. And no one said anything else about CARES Act money yet. And
It's
that's
here.
not in our possession. But
It's here.
okay.
It's here. And there's only been one application so far to the Grafton Strong account.
I'm sorry,
so
but Nancy Connolly is in what department?
She's the director of the senior center.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just didn't know. Thanks.
Yep.
So Chris, I mean, I hope in some ways, I hope there's money there for people at the same time. And I hope people don't need it, but how are you making the assessment that you need 300? I mean, where if one person is put in from Grafton Strong, I mean, do you have a sense of how many people would actually apply for this? And how are you figuring that out?
So the way we
did was, sorry, if I can tackle this one, we hired MCO, this organization who is a go-between to run lotteries based on need. And what we did is we looked at communities who have run this and the need that's out there. Also looking at the need already that exists and has been identified by our housing production plan for number of units that we have that are rental, a number of people that are living in those units that are living at or near poverty. Also combined with, the obvious, look, the housing production plan was done in 2018, and obviously things have changed over the last 6 months. So I can't speak to marketing efforts done for Grafton Strong. What I can speak to is, the commitment that we have within the trust to really marketing this and going out and finding people who are going to be enthusiastic about applying for rental assistance, which, as you know, is a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing for people to admit that they need the help. And the best thing that you could do is have somebody like MCO involved, who is a third-party facilitator, who's going to go out and market this as best as they know how. And they've been successful. They have a track record of doing that in communities across Massachusetts.
Yeah, yesterday, because I attended that meeting too, or listened, they explained that they would be advertising like in the Grafton News, the Patch. I'm not sure if you guys were going to do Facebook, or that there was going to be some kind of a Facebook piece.
Yeah,
so
I talked them out of the Patch. No, they're going to do Grafton Common, and they'll do the Grafton News. And then we're going to do targeted Facebook advertising, which, just in my own personal experience, I know they changed the algorithm lately for political stuff. I think this will fall outside of that, but it's really effective. I mean, for short cash, you can identify the audience that you want to see in advertisement and get it out there. I mean, I posted that we voted on this last night, and I put the announcement on All Things Grafton. It's got 100 likes and a bunch of interactions. So people are aware of it. And, it'll be our mission to make sure that people are aware of it, and people who need the help get the help.
Anybody else have questions that didn't have a chance to speak?
My only other thought, this might fall under needing a vote from the Affordable Housing Commission as well, the trust doesn't mind, but is it something that we want to say total cost is higher than 325 in case there's more applicants that we are able to serve, but still keep the ask from CPC the same?
I don't think we can at this point. We sort of set our budget, we're going out on a limb here. We don't really know what the response is going to be. Maybe it will be that, we don't run through our allotted money. I don't think that's going to be the case. Everything that we know about this crisis is that it's probably going to get worse come the fall. We know that the governor has extended the eviction moratorium another 60 days, but as Chris pointed out before, that isn't going to relieve anybody of their rental payment obligations. So I don't know if you've ever been in the situation before, but you get behind in your rent, it doesn't get any easier the next month. And so you may find yourself come December 1st, right around Christmas time, with a lot of people getting, notices to quit. I guess it would be 60 days, November 1st. You get a 30-day notice to quit or a 14-day for failure to pay rent. Come Thanksgiving, people are going to need to come up with that money. Our program runs specifically from July 1st through October 1st. So we're not even going to be able to help people with November 1st money unless we go back and commit more money to this for another 3-month block, So that's really our worry, I'm concerned that this won't be enough. I'm less worried that we'll have fewer applicants. And if we have fewer applicants, I'll be the first to say, hey, that's great. I was wrong. I'm glad. And I would be very glad to be wrong about that. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I kind of agree. My thought was do we want to, with the CARES Act money that we expected coming in, say the total cost in the projection is 425 instead of 325. But even if we don't change the CPC ask, so we can use grant or other funding sources if we want, first, and that's still a large percentage coming from or a percentage coming from outside sources rather than 0% from outside sources in theory, and CPC funding X.
But even if they run out of
know if
money, they still have $700,000 that, and I think this is we're using the word improperly when we're saying backfill. This isn't backfilling. When we've talked about backfilling for the last several months, that means you spend it and then we backfill it later. We're just going to award you money so that it's not going to be backfilled. This is just new money. You already have your $700,000, so there's nothing to backfill. If people follow what I'm saying.
Well, I follow what you're saying. In my mind, the $700,000 was given to the Affordable Housing Trust for a purpose of what the Affordable Housing Trust is chartered for, and that's not rental assistance at this point. Now, so it is backfill in a way because they're doing something outside of what their main charge is. That said, they do have more that they could put toward this and then come back to us for Maytown meeting if they felt there was a strong enough need and they wanted to support doing more. That's
the backfilling means replacing something that was taken. And if they don't spend any of their $700,000, we're not backfilling. That's all I'm saying. We're not backfilling. We're just giving them a grant for a project, $325,000.
Well, a little bit, John, but I think Chris had said, if Ed is right and they don't, they spend it all, they're going to look for more. If they don't spend it, I think Chris said they turn it back. So in a way, it's a little bit of a backfill rather than you just give them a grant and then they keep the money. Right? If you give them 300 and they only expend 100, they're going to return the 200 back to CPC.
Right, because there would be a sunset, but also the warrant language would require them to spend it for affordable.
Yeah, so it's not just a grant because they're going to, they'll give it back if they don't use it.
And then another thing that we haven't discussed, but that this is for people that have certain income needs. And that's what the MCO is going to be doing is vetting those people. And it's going to be a lottery that I think they have two hurdles. It's one that you submit a very brief application initially. And then if they feel like you've met the certain requirements of this program, then they contact them and get additional information. So there's not a lot of personal information shared until they're really in line to possibly get the money. Is that correct? The way I stated that?
Yeah, that's correct.
And it is a lottery. So if they have 100 people, but they only have money for 50, only 50 will get it. If they only have 50 people that apply and they have money for 50, everybody will get it.
Yep.
And is it, I guess, again, this is just not a very smart question. if their rent is only $1,000 a month, so 1,000 times 3 is 3,000. So basically, they may, instead of just one person getting it, they may have 2 people with a lower rent. So that's going to expand the people that the availability of the grants to those people with
Yeah,
a
so-
lower rent.
And that makes the budget a little bit flexible, because obviously that, if you touch more people, that's going to change the administrative costs, because it's the $400 per approved applicant. So that can fluctuate as well, but we felt that 325 was within the margins of what we kind of expect to initially be able to provide.
And MCO has been doing this in other cities and towns in the Commonwealth. So there's a track record there. So the whole process has been finited, and I think they're hitting the ground running here.
They also, a question was raised yesterday about the fee, and they said this is the ballpark. This is in the right ballpark. So if there are other groups, it was like $395 to $425 was the range that they gave. And I think depending on what you do, if it's not a lottery type program and it's a more needs based and they really have to get into the nuts and bolts of finances, then it's a higher fee. But this is what the going rate is for the program for the consultants when they do each application. And it's only if they don't get approved, it's not a $400 fee. It's only if they're approved.
John,
Yes.
we'll get to the treasurer's report. Well, you will later in the agenda, but I think it makes sense to remind folks that you have around $550,000 in total. And that is not as conservative, I don't think, as Ken would like. Ken's obviously not here, he's on vacation. Because the state match is coming in lower than was originally estimated. So I just, folks want to keep that in mind. And because you now have 2 projects before you that are totaling that amount of money. One of them might need to be reduced with money then, considered for May town meeting.
Well, I just figured that would be part of the conversation that we'd have at the treasurer's report. And then we would be able to report back in August in case there did have to be some fine tuning.
That's fine. It's, there was just discussion, and understandably so, of increasing this project in the amount that's awarded to them. So I think, folks need to keep all of this in mind, right?
And for clarification, Joanne, when I said increasing it, I was talking about increasing the total cost on the application, but not increasing the CPA spend. So it was an idea that we wouldn't necessarily get more given back to CPA, to the CPC, for us to utilize if they get grants or other funding sources for the rental assistance.
Understood.
So
right.
What I was
understood. This is just why I was so adamant about, the CARES Act. It's because Paul had asked, is this we're hoping? And he was told yes. And it's very much my understanding we have the money. So that's $100,000 in the bank right now for this program.
And that, I think in the next month, when Ken is back, and then we can also discuss with Chris, how, if there are questions and need additional information for Ken, that's why we have this extra month before we actually vote on the project in August. Anybody else?
There's a
Jim?
comment in the question and answer I'm willing to read if the chair would like.
Go right ahead.
All right.
I had no idea what you just said.
Me, Jim?
Yeah, I didn't get what you said.
I was saying there was a message in the question and answer through Zoom that I could read for the committee. And John told me to go ahead, so I'm going to read that now. So Eric Swenson, he commented that he's a member of the Affordable Housing Trust, but speaking for himself, it'd be great to see these additional funds approved on top of what CPC usually provides to the Affordable Housing Trust for its main mission, particularly in this time. I think it would show great partnership between the 2 committees that Grafton's boards are working together to help residents of the town who are most in need during this unprecedented crisis. Now is the time to take bold steps, even if it bumps up against the budget. Thank you for your consideration and support.
Well said.
Okay, thanks for reading that, Justin. I'm looking at two screens, sorry. Anybody else have a question or comment for Chris or Ed about this project? If not, thank you guys for coming, and I'm sure we'll be in touch with Chris, because Chris is going to flesh this out, give us a little more information as well. And because they only had one day, basically, they had their meeting last night to pull all this together for a grant request. So we appreciate the fact that they were able to get that paperwork in today to Joanne. So, okay.
Guys, appreciate it.
Thank you guys
Thank you.
for coming.
Here, Ed.
Great job, you guys.
Thanks,
Proud of
Jim.
you.
Appreciate your help.
Okay, we are gonna, let me find it. I think we go back and it's actually reorg is what we need to be doing. So we need to, this is the meeting to reorganize, which means we have elections for new officers.
All right, I'd like to make a motion.
Jim,
Now, let me ask a question to Joanne first. Joanne, can I make a blanket nomination, or does it have to be per position?
I don't see any reason why you can't do a blanket one, but that's something that the committee has to.
All right. Well, I'd like to make a motion that we return the present office holders to their same position in the next session.
Second.
So the motion and a motion by Jim, second by Brooke, to retain the officers that we have this year, which is I'm the chairman, Jim is the vice chairman, Ken is the treasurer, and Jen is muted. Jen is the clerk. Is everybody that's here with amenable to this?
I didn't know Jim was the vice chairman. I might rescind my.
Why do you think he did this?
I jumped on that too quickly.
Jen, are you good?
I'm good.
Okay.
Yep.
So we.
My only comment, Mr. Chair, just to say real quick.
Yes, sorry, Justin.
Yep. I had reached out to Jim privately before this meeting. I was going to suggest me nominating him for chair. He politely declined that suggestion, so I'm happy to move forward with the motion.
So the motion, no further discussion of a motion and a second. All those in favor, and I have to do a roll call. Justin.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
Brooke.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Jennifer.
Aye.
And I think that's it. Do I have to vote?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Aye. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. So the motion passes. Thank you. Quick. Treasurer's report, and that is important tonight. Let me get back to it.
John, it is, or the whole committee, it's the same report from, I'm forgetting what month I'm in, from June, sorry. Ken just sent me an email and stated that it's unchanged and suggested I just supply the June report again.
And
Was that one of the attachments that was sent? I don't.
yes.
How was it
Yes.
labeled?
Well, I think I put everything in a big PDF.
I see
It's a
May
PDF.
2020. Is that one?
I just see at the top.
Oh, yeah,
my little,
it may be actually labeled May, because honestly, I don't think June's was different than May's. Except he
Um,
he would have undone the super park. Why don't I share?
It's called Community Preservation Fund. It's the last on Wednesday, July 22nd. Joanne sent an email with 6 attachments, and
Yeah, I
this
have
one
that.
was the last one.
Here, I'll
Screen share.
oh wait, maybe it's not in here.
No, it is. It's the,
There,
what is
you
it?
just
Is it
you
the
zip
Keep,
file it.
keep going
It was
down,
just there.
Joanne, to the
I
end.
found
to the
it. Yeah,
very
the
end.
very last one, Community Preservation Fund Finances.
That's it.
Got it.
Yeah.
I got it. So
You got it?
And
Yeah.
It's
in
got
that,
527, 757 available.
right. So 527 available, and we have 575 in asks. So we have a little math to work.
And please remember, Ken had shared with us that the state match is about half of what he had estimated it would be.
so it'd be like 50,000 less than what's here?
No,
Almost
it's
60.
Yeah, we over reserved in all 3 areas, which, for Affordable Housing Trust, that's good, but they won't get the money till the spring.
What did you guys say the total ask was between these two?
Is it
It's
525?
575.
550?
575.
I give 475 if we've already got 100,000
Well, they're
money from the
asking,
CARES Act.
but they're
But
not.
they're not,
including that.
yeah, they're looking at 4 something. I think
No, but I agree with Paul. I that's kind of what I was thinking, that if they have 100, why not pay for the administrative piece and the 200, and then if they can use Affordable Housing Trust monies, if it really goes over 300, and then in the spring we can reevaluate. I don't know.
I agree with you, Jen. I had a discussion with Chris McGoldrick prior to the meeting tonight, and I asked him about the CARES Act money because I knew it was here, and asked if they wouldn't use that first to kind of gauge what sort of need there is. And he said that they were thinking about using that to expand the program if necessary. So it may be that, we need to go back, because really that is money we should use first, because if it doesn't get used, I don't know what happens to it.
But that's the guideline anyways. They have to use it first. That's
And
the
I
way-
think they're fully on board with that, but the same is said with the recreation, with the money that they have as well, that they need to use that money first as well.
They are though, Jim. When she asked for 250, that's because her project's 300. And
Oh.
she said, if I get in grants, it'll go back to CPA.
See, I
I
still think this is developing, and I don't think we really need to spend a lot of time worrying about this until next month.
Well-
I agree with Jim. I don't think we need to really get too into the weeds on how we split the money for these 2 project proposals we heard tonight until we discuss them again in a month.
Okay, well,
I
we
do
need
think
to
it's important that the money gets spent the way our act
Yes.
says it should be.
and
Oh,
we need to be
exactly,
very,
Paul, and they both committed to that, at least acknowledged that they knew that they had to do that. So that's good right there.
but we have 2 requests that total $575,000 according to the budget that was presented by Ken. We have 527, but possibly if you look on the right in the column, it says if the match is less, it's a potential $60,000 that we need to take off of that 527. So that's going to put us almost $100,000 short of both of those requests. So we do need to think. We can't just think about it next month, because that's going to put somebody, either or one or both parties, in a bind, because they've budgeted for one thing and we need to communicate to them. In the meantime, we need to pare down, or we need to reconfigure to make the money match.
So if we stipulate that they have to spend those dollars first, then the problem's solved, right? Then we have enough money.
So if we say that for the 325 for Affordable Housing Trust, that would, we would include the 100, so we would only give them 225. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
Okay.
But then the same would have to be true with recreation because she's requesting 300,000 and she's saying that she's got 50,000 somewhere else. So it should be 50-50.
She says she already has 50,000. And then she says something about grants in there, and that's where I get lost because there's no additional funding factored in that I can see. She's only showing basically that 50,000 that she already has on hand.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well.
So that's a follow-up. Go
Her
ahead.
cover
Joanne.
sheet says that the project cost is 300 and she's requesting 250,000.
Right, because she
Yes.
has 50,000 already.
Right.
But
So
Then she
Jim,
also
she's
says that she'll apply for grants, but then
Right.
doesn't account for anything other than what she said before. If she does get it, then she'd give money back.
right. So Jim, she's not asking us for 300,000.
All right.
She's
So,
asking you for 250.
250
Here, I can.
so that's 575, right? Between the
Right.
two of them?
minus the 100,000 for the CARES Act makes it 475.
Yeah, if you did it apples to apples, the affordable housing would say they want 330, actually two whatever it is minus the 100 that they already have. But they didn't know they had it when they came.
Right, right.
So once they realize they have it, they can reduce their ask 100.
Yeah. And then we can
And
make
no
it
matter
work.
what, if it goes way over, they've got a flush piggy bank that they can use. Now, they might have a lot of other projects in the works, but they'd have to spend $1.something million before the spring in order to come down to zero. So they have money that they can utilize it, and not to get into the semantics that CPC could backfill after it's been spent.
And if we're out of money, we have no money, even though we would want to give them money. If we spend it all now, there will be no more money to spend on anything because this is our cash.
So, if I
So
may,
there's
what I
no
would-
other requests other than these two?
For this, but Justin first, I heard him.
Yep. What I would suggest is that we reach out to both Jen Anderson and either Chris or Ed or even Dan Croston, just to say that from what we're looking at right now, we don't anticipate being able to fund the both projects that are in front of us at the 100% of the ask. What we would recommend is if there are other funding sources that they anticipate having, maybe they ask less. And that includes CARES Act for the affordable housing request. That could include any grants the Recreation Department believes they'll get in addition to that 50,000 that they already have. So that could reduce the number for the August meeting that we have to discuss this in more detail and make our approval of recommendations based on what they come back to us in the month with. That's what I would recommend.
If I could interject or add to
Paul?
that. So I don't disagree in concept of what you're talking about, Justin, but I think we should tell them that it's not recommending it. It's they have to expend other funds before they expend ours. And because of that, we can't afford, well, we don't have the money anyways, but because of that and the fact that they already have money, it makes it affordable for them to get to their overall goal. It's just how the money has to be spent.
And for clarity, Paul, I was meaning the CPA ask, because even if they have other funding sources and they got to spend those first, which they do, that doesn't mean that they wouldn't come to town meeting and say, hey, we want 325,000 from CPA to fund this project, because that's what we then earmark for them outside of our budget. And then if they don't spend it all, we get it back. But if we can't earmark that much, we don't have it as a total. So that's kind of the point I was getting at. So
I don't know if they can go to town meeting and ask for money that there's no funding for.
No,
I agree with Brooke.
Well, I agree with you too, Brooke. My main point is we can't vote favorably for both projects as they were presented tonight with 520, with 520 something we have. So
they don't have enough. You're right.
Yes.
John, do you know if they knew they had the CARES money when they asked, because this is all in the last 24 hours.
I emailed, and I think Joanne has emailed Dan, and he's not here, but I did bring it up last night that there's $100,000 in CARES that Tim had applied for. And I put that in an email probably last Friday, because I was, at that point saying, our deadline's coming up. If you're interested in applying, you need to get an application. So
So Dan Crossan reached out to me and asked me how it is he would go about accessing the CARES money. And I answered that question for him this morning. And that was how I got confirmation that the money is here.
okay.
So
Is there
maybe-
anything else that CARES money can be used for? Is that why there's hemming and hawing here because they don't
There's
want to apply it all to this?
My understanding is, and I can follow up on this tomorrow, there was significant items that Tim sought in the CARES Act, and the specific item of rental assistance was $100,000.
Okay.
The town's probably going to get a couple million because the
Yeah.
schools are going to get, this is probably wrong, but it seems like the superintendent sent out an email that they're getting 600,000 or, everybody needs money for security, safety, precautionary thing, so all these departments and all this, it's a huge budget that he submitted. And this is just one part of that budget.
Okay.
Justin.
I was going to mention this anyway, but I just want to call out that Ed Prisby did post into our Q&A to say that we knew that Tim had applied for CARES. News to me that it's in. First I heard of it was tonight. And I do recall him saying that earlier during his thing that he was not aware of, or at least Affordable Housing Trust was not aware that the CARES Act money was in and available to them.
So again, all the more reason why let's just flush this out before we start making decisions right now and find out who's got what to make sure we're all on the same page. But and we keep in mind, as Brooke says, we're certainly not going to go to town meeting and request more money than we have.
Yep.
Go to jail for stuff like that.
That's why my recommendation was to reach out to both applicants, tell them what our situation is, that if they can reduce their ask, then we have a chance of approving both, and we can get more information from them in a month if either of them are unable or unwilling to reduce their ask, and then we can vote accordingly. That's my feeling.
I don't think the rec one needs to be reduced. I mean, they've got 50,000 already. They're asking for 250, and she says she needs 300. And then if she should get grants, because she hasn't applied for them yet, but if she does, then she will give back whatever that money is awarded.
Yeah, just to repeat, my main point there is that if there's grants that they feel confident they're going to get, and that they feel they can reduce their ask in order to meet their need, then that's something that they can still do for the betterment of the town and betterment of everything. And I don't know if they need to, but that's something that I think we can also vote next month if they do or they don't.
Paul?
Having done these projects before, you hope you get grant money, but you don't know if you're going to, and we'd hate to see this project not move forward because they didn't have adequate funds. So I'm perfectly comfortable with, giving them the amount that they're looking for, assuming we can make those numbers work, knowing that they may use less if they should get grant money. And you can word the warrant that way. We've done that before.
Okay, I'm just concerned that I don't think the priority goes to the playgrounds when we're talking about people that are being evicted. I think that's where the greater need is, and I think we need to keep that in mind. And then having said that, I think let's just get some more information before we come up with anything hard and fine.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I was just going by the numbers that we had. If you looked at the 225 for one and 250 for the other, it sounded like we could do.
So if we did that, it's 475 total ask, and you subtract that from 527, so that means we've got $52,000 cushion, except in his note that if the match is less, it could be up to $58,000 less, so that we could still be in the whole $6,000. So that's, I don't know at what point we make a financial determination, if we have to work with the town accountant and Ken to come up, and it has to be a conservative number, that so that we know, and it has to be well before the meeting in a month, that we have X dollars that we can count on. We may get extra that we can give them later, but for right now, we can't have extra. And if affordable housing has that extra $600,000 that they can spend. If they're going to spend an extra $50,000, that's not going to make or break them trying to build something on Worcester Street, because I don't think in 6 months you can come up with a plan, get an architect, get a developer, do all the engineering, surveying, planning. It just, I don't think that $50,000 to $100,000 that if they had to use it, that we would backfill when we have the money in May, would stop their project. They do
Okay,
have that
but
money.
again, I don't think it's a decision we have to make tonight, John.
No,
That's
I
all
know
I'm
we don't,
saying.
but we really need to be thinking about it, because
Oh,
I
absolutely.
see Justin, I see your hand, but this is a real concern, because if we don't have the money, it won't work. And I don't know if the town, how that gets approved to spend at town meeting, but somebody will say to us, stop, hold it. You can't do this. You can't have only X dollars that you have in your account that you can spend. So that's, we have to rely on somebody else to tell us that exact dollar amount. And hopefully we can get that sooner rather than later, so that at the next meeting, this may not be an issue at all, but it may be. So this is something, because we don't want to be scrambling and then have to turn in our recommendations to the next day to the town administrator. We don't have any wiggle room. It's due the next day or the next
No,
Monday.
you're right. You're right when you say that we got to be fully informed about what's going on right now. But I think it's just we don't need to make up our minds right.
Right. Oh, no.
We gotta be aware.
And we do need to make sure that both applicants know that this is the financial situation and that we want to fund them, but we can only fund what we have. And so, if you didn't get all of it, we need to come up with, these are kind of alternate plan Bs if you get less. And that's all I need to say. Justin keeps being patiently waiting.
Yeah, I agree with both of you there. And I do want to just say that, yeah, even if we did reduce the affordable housing aspect by 100,000, as you mentioned, John, with what the estimate is, if the state comes in less, we could be 6,000 in the hole. Jenny Anderson did mention that the coverage quote was for 100% coverage of these parks, and they don't necessarily need 100% coverage. So they may be able to come back with us after seeing that we don't have enough for everything, that say, okay, well, we can estimate we only need 90% coverage or 80% coverage or whatever. And they can reduce their ask in theory. Doesn't mean they have to, doesn't mean they will.
Mm-hmm.
But based on whatever they come back with us in a month, with whatever we have in finer detail about the finances and what Affordable Housing Trust comes back with us with, then we can make our votes and determination there. And I do agree with Jim a bit as well, that in the end, there's no greater need than people being able to have a roof over their head and support their families. Granted, I've wanted us, I want both really badly in this case, as far as approving them, but we only have so much money.
John,
Right.
may I interject with a recommendation?
I hear somebody, Joanne.
It's me. Yeah. So there's some other financial issues as well. We have the Lions Club project, the engineering work that was done. They did not use all of their money. Right. There's closing out of some projects that's happened on June 30th that I know some of that is still going on. We should probably, I keep saying we, I apologize. You as a committee may want to ask Ken to meet with the folks who are doing the town accountant position right now. There's a firm that's helping with that work to find out exactly what our undesignated fund balance is. That gets certified at some point in September, but they might be able to give us something of an estimate now based upon the fact that, projects closed out on June 30th.
Good point. Anita always would email me, what do you want to close out or what should be closed out? And because she's no longer there and it's a consultant, there's not that institutional memory that needs to take place. And I certainly didn't remember. So
why don't I follow up with them tomorrow or early next week?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of get the ball rolling. Ken can step in then and handle some of that, because I think he likes to do it.
Right.
And then we'll have more information.
But even if we can get Tina to send me,
So not to
Um,
divulge too much, but I think Tina's delivering a baby tonight.
oh, I didn't know that. So
She's
Jim,
gonna be
really
out for a while.
I'm really out of the loop. But they would send me a report, so it would show, like at the end of the year, these were the balances, and it would show, all the different projects, and then I would say close out because it's done. It's either totally finished or it has sunsetted, and
Yep.
so that's the first easy attack at this, and then
Yep.
if somebody can get that, and then we can get the more precise numbers that you would get for the undesignated fund balance.
Okay, so I'll have that as my to-do to follow up with accounting, okay?
Okay, great. Thanks. I didn't realize she was having a baby.
Yeah.
So I'll move that we accept the treasurer's report as presented.
Okay, do I have a second? Jim, any discussion? All those in favor? I got to say your name. Sorry. Justin,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Brooke,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
John, aye. Motion carried unanimously. Now we have, I think it's the secretary's minutes, rather. Yes, we need to do minutes.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes of the May and June meeting.
Okay. I have a motion to accept May and June minutes
Second.
and a second from Justin. Any discussion? All those in favor? Justin,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Brooke,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
John, aye. I declare the motion carried unanimously. We're down to project updates. I will start open space and recreation plan. Jen, I think you're working with that.
I don't have an update. I'm no longer on that committee, but
Okay.
if you still want me to look into it, I can.
Okay. Joanne, do you, because it seems like it's almost done, or maybe it really is done, because I think that's what's the last
Yes.
couple of months. So I think it's pretty close to done. Okay.
It's very close. In fact, I'll write myself a note to follow up on that, okay?
Okay.
I'll say I'm not on the open space committee, but I do know the planning board did accept or adopt whatever the terminology we used was for the draft plan, and I did hear that the draft plan was almost finalized as well. So and
I think it's
believe
coming.
it did get the approval from the state, I believe. But
Yeah,
it
I
has
think
a
it's
draft.
coming before select board soon, so I'll find out.
Okay. Institute Woods, any update on that?
No.
Nope. Okay. Town
Oh,
Archives.
I did want to let you
Oops,
know that
sorry.
midway through the meeting, Sandy texted me. She was stuck at work in a public hearing, so
Okay.
she
all right.
sends her apologies. She had expected to be able to come.
Nope, that happens. No problem. Thanks for letting us know. Town Records Archival Project. Any news, Paul? Any new?
Nothing since the last time Candy was here. No, I haven't heard any
Okay.
more.
Same for gravestones. Grafton Common, I know you have more.
Yes, so I'm happy to announce that we have seen the draft plans for the engineering work associated with the Common Improvements Project. So there is some final adjustments that still need to be made, some tweaking, mostly to do with the electrical, which is a huge piece of this. Once we have that finalized, we will then be able to give that to the arborists that we hired, Davy Resources. And they said once they have that, they can pretty quickly complete the report. It's not going to be a real long turnaround time for that, unlike the engineering plan. So we're hoping within the next month or so, we will get the finalization of those engineering plans, and then we'll move forward with Davy Resources. And then another kind of side piece of this, part of the funding that we had asked for was for trees. And as you all are probably aware, we had a large maple tree that was on the common towards the Grafton Inn side of the common, which I believe is the east side, near the east entrance, just behind the gazebo. Excuse me, John, correct me.
The bandstand.
Bandstand. Caught myself
Billy
that time.
Bean's gonna haunt you.
So that tree came down, and as it came down, it unfortunately took out the conifer tree that's been used around holiday time by the town. And so unfortunately that had to be removed. So we are looking to replace it. We've had some dialogue with the town tree warden, Paul Cornier, and we had asked if there might be a possibility that some of the town-owned land that we have, if there might be a candidate for a new tree to go in there. We do have the Pell property, which used to be a Christmas tree farm, and the new property, and I'm forgetting the name of the family that donated it just recently, but right off of Old West, not
North Street.
Off of North Street.
Engballs.
Yeah, Engballs. Thank you. That used to be a Christmas tree farm as well. So Paul Cornier felt that there actually are some candidates up in the Pell property, and he was actually going to be going up there within the next month for some other work, and he was going to have a look-see and then report back to us. And what we thought is we could get some input from the arborists that we have hired on anything we need to know about removing that tree and planting it so that it doesn't get damaged in the process, or we minimize the likelihood of that. So we could definitely do that as well. But this way we'd be able to leverage town resources to get that tree in. So, you know, we'd keep the costs down, which is good because we didn't budget a ton of money for trees. So just,
And if people
that's pretty
are
much it, unless you
wondering,
can think of anything I've forgotten, Jen.
the stumps are coming out, but not until the fall, because that's when they remove stumps, because that's what the district commission's been real chomping at the bit, because we wanted to know about the stumps, and they will come out, but it'll be the fall when they do all of them across town. Also, this is kind of a wrinkle that we had thought that we were going to be able to put all the electrical underneath the walkway, and there is a telephone line, and we aren't sure, and so that's something that we may end up moving things around, but it's not going to change anything. We'll still have lighting. It just because we can't go down too much because of the roots, and we also can't impact that because it's I don't know what the right word is, but it's a huge telephone line that connects South Street to the rest of the town, I believe.
That's also where we get the live feed for cable, so that we can broadcast live from the bandstand too.
Right, that's boxes. They're going to be relocated, but just a little bit, kind of in the same neighborhood.
Yeah, I don't think this is the same one as what Jim is talking about. This is another one, Jim, and we really need to find out from a code perspective if we can lay the conduit next to that. But it does show that, you know, there's already been excavation in the area of the walkway to have been able to put that line in, and we don't know when that was done. My guess is it was probably done prior to the walkway going in as it sits in its present form. But we're looking at that as an option, and then if that doesn't work, or if we find that for some reason would be more damaging to the trees, an alternative approach would be to run the line along the east side of the common, where there's pretty much a clear path with no trees, significant trees. So we have options. That's why
irrigation that we have to avoid too. So I mean, there's a lot of things that are in play to make this work, but we're gonna, get it done. It's just gonna take a while to find everything underground.
So we're on track for us to be able to put together an RFP so that after the holiday season, we can hit the ground running, putting out the RFP and hire a contractor to start the project in late winter, early spring of next year, 2021.
No, but we're very optimistic. We're getting close. Thanks, Paul. Here's one that we are going to get money back. Weights and Measures is done. It's back in the municipal center. We'll get a few $1,000s back. So a few $1,000 in terms of a tight budget is very meaningful. The historic resources inventory has been completed, and it just has to be approved now by Mass Historical Commission. And then once that's completed, and that's another return to historic to CPC. Once that's approved, then that money will be because that was a matching grant, and so I think $15,000, or if I'm not incorrect, I can't exactly if that's the right amount, we'll get back. So again, it's that we're waiting on the state to approve the plan, and then they would have to process the payment, and then that would go back into the historical reserve. If that's where, I don't remember if that all money came from historical.
I don't think, John, I think the historical reserve gets used by the townhouse bond payment typically, so.
Okay.
that
No, but
would be good.
if the money, okay, so then it would have had to come from for any purpose. So then
I
that's
believe
good.
so, which is good.
Yeah. And the engineering work, as Joanne said, is, I don't know if it's totally complete. Is it completed?
I reached out. Oh,
They've,
sorry.
they've started work on the driveway, so we really need to get an update on that project.
Okay, Jim, do you have a?
I reached out to them last week and I asked for an exact status by tonight, and I did not get a response.
Okay.
So I'll stay on them.
If
I'll
you can
note-
ping them. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I think, was it Justin?
Yeah, sorry. I was gonna say I'll note that the Lions Club did post on their Facebook page yesterday that they had their grounds and park closed for the day, and possibly for yesterday and possibly today during the day for starting the process of grounding and preparing their driveway and parking lot for the paving
Okay.
process. And they
Okay,
did
good.
post a video yesterday on their Facebook page about the phase 1 of driveway paving.
Okay, so Jim, I guess that's really important for us because in terms of
Yeah.
dollars, for them to come up and to say, so that we can close that out.
Right,
If
I
it is-
understand.
And then we get that to apply, so we're not so tight. It sounds like we are getting more wiggle room with each one of these projects. And then I believe Cisco Homestead is complete, but that needs to be verified. And I think there is just a little bit of money left in that, not more than 1,000 or 2.
On the Cisco Homestead, I haven't heard anything since I think January or February, but I did reach out to Ray again just last week. I emailed her, and
Yeah.
I have not received an email back from her yet.
Okay. I'll
She's probably
ping her.
busy with the Lions Club people. Neither one of them got back to us, Justin.
But
Right, they're all partying. Okay, I just lost my agenda. I think that's it. Anybody else have anything else?
As we're winding up, I think we should make a motion that until the COVID emergency is resolved, that Justin not be allowed to have a virus behind him during these Zoom meetings.
That's the
Is that a
Aurora
virus?
Borealis. The Northern Lights, my friend.
It looks like it's out of the Twilight Zone, sorry.
I'm here up in Alaska. Sorry.
And you need to go out. Tonight's the last night to see the comet. Go out. and
Well,
see the comet.
I've had my binoculars out, and ever since I've had them out, we've been overcast.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
well, I think they say that like 8:30 to 9, or right at dusk and darkness. So
Did anyone
night.
see the awesome picture that was on Facebook? It was of that, the remnants of that church on, was that Wachusett Reservoir over in Boylston?
Oh, yeah.
Or West Boylston. It's right in West Boylston. There's a picture of it. It's illuminated with the American flag on the side of it and the comet flying overhead.
cool.
Re-
Cool.
really
I haven't
cool
seen
picture.
that. Cool.
I
Um,
did see
that-
that.
If I forget, ask or remind me and I'll forward it to you. But it's a pretty cool picture.
Okay,
So I guess I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
That's your
Second,
Second.
prerogative. We have a motion and a second. Not your prerogative, it's your duty. Um,
Duty.
duty.
Howdy. He said duty.
It's his obligation. How's that? Any discussion? All those in favor? Justin,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Brooke,
aye.
Jennifer, Jen,
Aye.
John, I. We are adjourned.